Hello everyone, my name is Boulevard, going to be bringing you the English action for this Mindmaster 2020 Grand Finals, hosted by Riot Japan. The semifinals are up on the same channel here, but if you're only joining us for the Grand Finals, I totally understand. Let me give you the lowdown on what you missed in case you are only joining us for this one so you're not behind. This is a 2-deck region-locked no-ban tournament, as is pretty typical of Invitationals these days. We have Aclon running Twisted Fate Ezreal as well as Frostbite midrange, and we have Luichi playing Misfortune Quinn Bannerman as well as Jinx Draven discard aggro. Importantly, we did just see Luichi pick up a win against Economica, who was running the same lineup as Aclon. Now, the nameplates do seem to be switched here. Luichi is the one on the Bannerman deck, Aclon is the one on the Twisted Fate Ezreal, so they should get that squared away in a second here. Critically, we didn't actually see this matchup in Luichi's top 4 match. The Twisted Fate Ezreal from Economica actually picked up a Game 1 win against the discard aggro, so we didn't get to see it play against the Bannerman. So, a little curious to see how this one plays out. I'm pretty sure it can more or less be boiled down to the fact that this is a Riptide Rex deck against a board-centric deck. There are still Rangers Resolves in Luichi's deck. That is sort of the one blowout onto the Rex that we can find. Or Luichi can just get aggressive enough to aggro out Aclon here in game number 1. Also, if you are worried about the stream quality, that is just how things work out sometimes. It looks like Luichi has not been having the best time with their stream, even though this is a LAN. So once they switch things around, I believe we'll be moving over to Aclon's view. Hopefully they keep the nameplates there so that I don't confuse myself. As I mentioned, Luichi is actually on the bottom running the Bannerman, Aclon on the top running the Twisted Fate Ezreal. It is correct over there on the side. If you look to the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the players' names correctly lined up with the decks that they are running. So far, this game, a little bit of trades, a little bit of damage dealt to each player, but at the end of the day, on turn 3, we are both sitting, staring each other in the face with 3 mana and 18 life. This does appear to favor Aclon, who does have the further development of the Petty Officer, but actually decides that he doesn't want to develop anything, instead floating the spell mana. This is an Ezreal deck. You do have a Thermo Beam available to you if you want to go ahead and try and take out a big unit. We are going to see the Petty Officer anyway. Gets Cytheria of Cloudfield. Now that is going to throw me for a loop, as we do have Cytheria of Cloudfields coming out of Aclon as well. Just not going to be able to keep track of who's Bannerman at this point, but I will try my best for your sake, viewer at home. My point is to bring you clarity here, and speaking of clarity, it looks like a Make It Rain. I mean, Make It Rain's pretty awkward onto this card, I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't really do much. It stops the 3 damage, but you could just wait for the normal attack anyway. I don't think you're super inclined to throw either of these units under the Badger Bear. If you really want to, you could block this with the Cytheria and then Thermo Beam the Badger Bear. You know, Genevieve, really one of the better Thermo... Oh, no, actually, we are just gonna see the Make It Rain. Okay, never mind, throw all that out the window. We could still... I mean, we could still block with the Cytheria and Thermo Beam, but you wouldn't do that after you Make It Rain. All right, it looks like we have gotten the screen situation acclimated, and everybody is in their proper place. One thing I do want to point out, Cytheria the Bold has made her return for the most part in the Bannerman decks, and that Luichi is no stranger to that, does have 1 copy in the deck. Gets the Jagged Butcher down on the side of Aclon. Got a little lost in the sauce as the screens flipped back around. But yeah, not going to block the Badger Bear. I'm a little surprised to see the Make It Rain come out over something like the Thermo Beam. But it looks like he's just going to soften this one up and take it out with the red card. Perhaps this was his plan all along. And that does appear to be the case. Luichi going to take 6 damage, or 5 damage rather, for his trouble. Aclon going to inch the life total back into their favor. And Luichi's hand not looking phenomenal. Oh, this Twisted Fate could actually be a bigger punish than we may realize. There is a chance that Luichi goes for this Fleet Feather Tracker after combat, setting up for the Bannerman, and just loses his board to the red card, forcing Luichi to develop the Grizzled Ranger instead. Perhaps that's what Luichi's playing around, decides to actually block the Cytheria of Cloudfield, says, I'll take a little bit more damage to make your red card a little bit less appealing. But this does just open up the possibility of a Twisted Fate gold card to actually kill the Badger Bear instead. Aclon could go for the Black Market Merchant instead. And this is a matchup where I very much prioritize the nab effects. Your opponent is running mostly units, and they're pretty stat-efficient units. If you can get one of those at a discounted cost, you have a much better shot at actually fighting for board. I think that this is one of, if not the best matchups for the nab package to actually go through. Of course, there are some dream nabs you can get in other matchups. Oh, I took the Indoors out of your They Who Endure deck, or I took away all your Atrocities, or I took the Harrowing out of your deck, and now I get to win the game with it. But I think that consistently, this is the matchup where the nab is going to play the most. Blue card, not something I had actually mentioned for the Twisted Fate. A little surprised to see that one come out here. He's going to get the Spell Mana back in his favor. Are we firing off a Thermogenic Beam, or are we just going to play this Pool Shark? You do still have fairly decent blockers for the board as it stands. I think the Pool Shark makes a fair bit of sense here. Fleet Feather Tracker, probably going to pull one of these 3-attack units. Could pull the Twisted Fate instead, although that does leave a lot of awkward blocks for Luichi. What I mean by that is, if Luichi goes for the open attack here and the Fleet Feather Tracker challenges the Twisted Fate, Aclon gets to clean up the rest of the board and get left with a Pool Shark. And it looks like Aclon actually has a beautiful setup here for the Warning Shot into the Black Market Merchant, into a Yordle Grifter, but this Genevieve Elmheart going to make things really awkward for Aclon. Everything is now super out of range. Would have loved to get that red card value, but Luichi very, very smartly plays around that, blocking the Cytherea, taking the extra damage, not opening up the Badger Bear Fleet Feather for that. Now we are going to see a whiff on the Yordle Grifter. Yordle Whifter, as I call him. That's a bit of dad humor for you. For any of the dads watching. I don't know the average age of the Runeterra tournament spectator, but for all you dads out there, feel free to use that one on your kids at home when you are teaching them how to play Legends of Runeterra, as you should be. Now, Aclon is in a rough spot. His units no longer line up effectively onto Luichi's. This Genevieve is going to be able to get the 2-for-1 trade that she so often does. I think Aclon might have to throw down the Thermo Beam onto her here. This is a disastrous turn. Okay, it looks like we're going full value plan here. Aclon could try to push through lethal with one of these Relentless Pursuits. Actually doesn't even go for the Scout Attack, and I think that means we are 100,000% seeing at least one of those Relentless Pursuits this turn. It's just a matter of how many blockers does Aclon want to line up, and I think when your opponent doesn't go for the Scout Attack like this, you have to understand that Relentless Pursuit is what's coming out here. But Aclon has a little bit of leeway here. He could Mystic Shot something in combat, although I don't think he's super inclined to. You know, you do want to wait to see if the Ranger's Resolve comes out of your opponent first. But there is a way that he can order this so that he does line up both the Mystic Shot and the Thermogenic Beam this turn. Taking out both of the Challengers is going to let this Bannerman hit through. So all the blocks have been locked in. Mystic Shot not coming out. Could come out in response to the Relentless Pursuit, though, which I think is pretty smart. You know, if you want to throw it out in combat, you're not really playing around Ranger's Resolve. Oh no, we're going for the Black Market Merchant instead. We're going to steal a Bannerman. 3 mana 3/3 is reasonably costed at the very least. You know, you're never going to get its ability off, but you do at least get a efficient unit stat for your cost thanks to the reduction from the Black Market Merchant. Here we are going to see the Relentless Pursuit. I do believe this means Mystic Shot will be coming down onto one of these units, and then you can throw out the Thermo Beam after the fact. So Mystic Shot onto Genevieve, Thermo Beam onto Fleet Feather. Seems like the play to me. You could take another 4 damage from this Bannerman. You know, you can... Oh, actually doesn't have the mana for the Thermo Beam. That's right. I don't know why I thought he was going to be left with 1 mana. Thermo Beam's off the table, but it's fine. You've got some decent blocks lined up. This Badger Bear going to die to the Pool Shark. And actually just going to get held back, says, I don't want this to die to a Pool Shark. I have a little bit more value to get out of it. I lied. Badger Bear, you can go ahead and die. Go meet that Pool Shark in battle. See who comes out on top. The answer is nobody. And it comes down to, do we want to block this Bannerman with the Yordle Grifter? I'm pretty inclined to say that the answer is no. Oh, and we're actually just going to go ahead and take the Yordle Grifter off the table. Yeah, deciding that the Black Market Merchant's effects has already gotten its value, we need to take as many stats off the board as possible. Does seem to be the play here. Pool Shark can still line up onto this Badger Bear, and now we are definitely not going to be taking out this Bannerman with the Black Market Merchant. Or at least blocking it. It had no chance of taking it out. We're not going to block it either. And Aclon, you know, just a Riptide Rex away from really coming back into this one, actually is going to block the Black Market Merchant into the Bannerman. This does set him up for a pretty juicy Ezreal top deck. Go ahead and get that down, get the Mystic Shot online, take that Bannerman out, just preserving as much of the life total as possible, maybe making a read for the second Relentless Pursuit out of Aclon, who does have a pretty impactful Relentless Pursuit turn this turn if he wants to go for a Grizzled Ranger. So we're going to discard the Bannerman for an Urchin. Going to go ahead and pick up another Urchin. Probably going to discard the Warning Shot to that one, as this Thermo Beam does have a lot of value to be gained in this matchup still. Not onto the current board, but if we see another Genevieve come down or a Cytherea the Bolt off the top, any of the top end coming out of Luichi. Oh, actually going to discard the Thermo Beam, playing solely for the Rex top deck. And it's got to feel really bad to do that and then see a Yordle Grifter off the top to give you another copy of Warning Shot. Aclon, how are you going to get yourself out of this one? This is a pretty weak Relentless Pursuit out of Luichi now that both Zonite Urchins have been developed. If you want to throw that one out, you are just going to lose both units to these. Sure, the Badger Bear gets to come in for an open attack on the next turn as well as an attack after the fact. And actually going to whiff the Yordle Grifter again. 2 Warning Shots left in the hand of Aclon to a pretty gassed out hand of Luichi. I'm pretty inclined to say that Luichi's going to take this. Maybe not on the next turn, but definitely on a Relentless Pursuit on Aclon's turn. Ezreal finally gets picked up. I don't think we're really anywhere near that level up, though, unless I've horribly misrepresented the game state in my own mind. But I think for the most part, we've been seeing a very unit-centric game. Aclon hasn't had priority yet, so I haven't been able to see if there was a yellow banner or not. I'll get back to you on that one as soon as I can, viewer at home. Looks like we're going to start off with the Fleet Feather Tracker. So, Luichi swinging for the stars. Cannot play out the rest of his hand. Is just 1 mana shy of doing that one. Aclon fast passes it back over. I'm going to assume that that means the Ezreal is not leveled. Though it doesn't really matter, you're not really looking to use it as a blocker this turn. You do just want to, if it is leveled, you want to present lethal with it on the following turn. But as I said, I don't think it is. And currently, Aclon, I think, is just dead to this Relentless Pursuit. Here we're going to see the Scout attack. Not even going to see the Scout attack. Just going to see, all these attacks come out. I don't care about the Scouts. You're going to have to block my Bannerman. I can take the Scout attack after the fact with this Relentless Pursuit, or I can even wait until next turn with it. But yeah, one of 2 things is going to happen this turn. Either Aclon is going to lose the game, or Aclon is going to lose his Ezreal. And then it really comes down to, can he top deck the Riptide Rex? This will sort of be his last chance to do so. But he does still have a chance to do so, and that is something that we've seen swing matchups in a big way so many times in the past. Riptide Rex, one of the more complained about cards recently, just absolutely destructive for boards, punishes you for playing the game properly, and we're going to take it all back, and Luichi's actually going to go for the Scout attack. 2 Badger Bears coming at you, Aclon. What is the answer? I'll tell you what the answer is, folks. It's die. Aclon has lined up 1 Zonite Urchin, going to line up the second Zonite Urchin. These Badger Bears still going to come out, and that is 11 damage presented on the side of Aclon with all 4 of these units. One of them will get blocked. The second one could get blocked by the Ezreal, but that does mean the Relentless Pursuit will be lethal this turn. I'm 90% sure. Don't even see the Ezreal come out pre-combat, still wanting to play around that Fleet Feather Tracker riposte combo that Luichi has available to them. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think we actually just see lethal on this attack, depending on if Luichi wants to go for the riposte or the Relentless Pursuit. I think this block specifically really inclines you to go for the riposte onto the Fleet Feather. You know that Aclon has 2 Warning Shots. That last card, there's nothing in Aclon's deck that can stop you from winning the game if you riposte this Fleet Feather Tracker. Could just use the Relentless Pursuit as well, but I actually prefer the riposte because there is a lot of value to be gained from the Relentless Pursuit on the following turn. And that is going to be Luichi moving up 1-0 here in the finals. The last Invitational that I cast from the East was actually the Deck Masters tournament in Korea, which played out a best-of-7 finals that ended up going to a game number 6. So it feels very strange to me to say that in game number 2 here, we are actually at match point for Luichi. I'm so used to best-of-5 and best-of-7 finals and these long, drawn-out, intense matches, but all of a sudden we could see the game end by a very aggressive start from a discard aggro deck, and Luichi has a pretty good hand to go ahead and get that one done. Haven't seen the Draven play out for him just yet. Rummage is probably the dream top deck in a scenario like this. Get Excited might have been a little bit better, but Aclon going to give him a run for his money. He is playing a deck that does fight for the board relatively well, and he's actually just going to pass over, unwilling to use this Thermogenic Beam onto the Precious Pet. This is a play that we've seen come up a lot across multiple formats. Do you Thermo Beam the turn 1 Precious Pet? There are always much more impactful targets in the deck, but when you sit down and you math it out and you add up the numbers, you have to ask yourself, how soon can I actually answer this Precious Pet? Is this card going to deal 4 or 6 damage to me? In which case, if the answer is yes, throw out that Thermogenic Beam. But Aclon has Make It Rain and Jagged Butcher available to him, so he is suddenly going to turn the tables and become the aggressor, push 4 damage on to Luichi this turn between the Make It Rain and the Jagged Butcher. So critically holding back that Thermo Beam that we could see come down onto the Draven this turn. I don't think there's a universe where Luichi doesn't slam this down. There's nothing that you actually have to bait out any kind of removal from your opponent. That's what the Draven is going to do. That does mean that your Astute Academic on the following turn will be safe for the time being, although that could get gold carded. Aclon so far, pretty strong hand here. Has the Twisted Fate to continue to control the board. If you've taken a look at Luichi's deck list, which is in the description below, then you will know that he's not running a lot of powerful units. It's very much a go wide deck and pray for that vision top deck at the proper time. And a Twisted Fate red card can completely decimate a strategy like that. You know, we are maxed out on Jury Rigs. We've got Spiderlings coming out of House Spiders. Things of that nature. We could even get a barrel off the Petty Officer and get a 2 damage Twisted Fate red card if that is a situation that comes up in the future. But so far in the meantime, Aclon seems to be the aggressor in this matchup, really likes his position there, and Luichi doesn't have much to say about it. He's kind of sitting on his hands until we see this, not Astute Academic, the card next to it, the Augmented Experimenter, come down a couple of turns from now. And it looks like we're actually going to see Rummage discarding the Jury Rig, as well as the Flame Chomper's Jinx now picked up on the side of Aclon. And we can even take out the Jinx with the Twisted Fate if we need to, you know, go for a Petty Officer into a Twisted Fate gold card. Now, we know that wouldn't work out because of the Noxian Fervor, but a play to be considered nonetheless. We can level Jinx this turn, if we really want to. Luichi could play the Jinx, Draven Axe something random, and fire off the Rummage, and that is a 5-card hand emptied for 1 mana. And Aclon doesn't have anything to say about that. If Luichi passes here, I think Aclon is going to be, you know, wanting to develop the board further anyway, and that would at least let Luichi know that there is nothing coming out from Aclon, but instead we're going to throw that one down. It looks like now the gold card will just come out to set this up for the Make It Rain, but that is not going to be enough, as it looks like Luichi is going to go for the hand clear this turn. I wanted to say board clear, but that's not right, and I wanted to say hand dump. I was about to meet him in the middle. Is Luichi going to go for this, though? We did see him aggressively go for these Jinx levels in his top 4 match against Economica. We saw it work out decently well for him. Got gunked up in a game by drawing double Augmented Experimenter after he had already discarded an Augmented Experimenter. It was a very awkward situation. It looks like he's not going to find himself in something like that again. Wants to get these Super Mega Death Rockets online as soon as possible. Didn't really find the aggro game plan in the early game he was looking for. And I gotta admit, I'm not a big fan of the discard aggro decks. I feel like they're a little cheesy. They're a little all-in on the Jinx. And it's, you know, Aclon still has a pretty high life total. Luichi's got to get a couple Super Mega Death Rockets off. He is so good at discarding Augmented Experimenter and then drawing both copies of Augmented Experimenter, really mucking up his hand for this Jinx. And it's going to be a while before he's able to empty this one out. We've already seen 2 Rummages fired off, And the third copy is mandatory if he wants to empty his hand anytime soon. And of course, we'll have the Experimenter next turn, so by anytime soon, I really just meant this turn. But that is one more turn delayed for the Super Mega Death Rockets coming out, and gold card number 2 will kill the Jinx. And this is the problem that we saw Luichi run into the semifinals. The fact that he is now down 1 Jinx and is about to be down all 3 Experimenters. Luichi, your name is now forever ingrained in my mind along with this play specifically, and for that I apologize. If there's one thing you're going to be known for, it's that guy that just cannot stop drawing triple augmented Experimenter. So it's nice to see that even if you have that bad luck, you can still make it to the finals of one of the largest prize pool tournaments we have seen thus far in Legends of Runeterra. So if you're trying this deck out on ladder and you go, oh, I just keep drawing 3 augmented Experimenter, look to Luichi, your savior, your promised land, who now has a pretty impactful, the Pilfer package is going to come down from Aclon. And this is not something that I like in this matchup. There's really not a lot of impactful steals. I had mentioned a little earlier in the semifinals just how many dead cards there are in Luichi's deck, especially if you are stealing them away. You know, Jury Rigs, Visions, these Flame Chompers, the House Spiders. There's no super impactful steal that you're going to feel phenomenal about. Do see the Augmented Experimenter come down, but we need to pick up a Jinx to really get that refill plan going. Do see Vision as well as the Flame Chompers, so we got a bit of a board at the moment, but Aclon's sitting at 18 life. That's sitting pretty, my friend. And you did not draw anything. This is what I meant. These are some duds coming out of Luichi here. I know I said to look for him for inspiration, but sometimes that inspiration is dusting yourself off and getting back up after a hard loss, and that one's looking a little bit more likely than him walking away with a W this game. What do we got here? Decimate, that is the only copy of Decimate in the deck. Does look a little bit random to my eyes, but I am definitely no expert when it comes to discard aggro. Looks like Zonite Urchin going to come out now, discard the Jury Rig. What do we get off the top? It's another Jury Rig. And we are going to see a Rummage out of Aclon for a Static Shock and a Zonite Urchin. Nothing phenomenal here. The Static Shock does line up pretty well into this board from Luichi. You are still an Ezreal deck. You do want to dig a little bit deeper as well as get at those, or you know, get those targets accelerated. Gonna see a discard from the Zonite Urchin picking up a Thermo Beam, and that does mean that if Luichi does manage to find a Jinx, it's probably gonna die straight away. At this point, Luichi pretty much needs to draw Draven into Jinx, and I don't necessarily know that he's gonna have the time for all that. But he does need to find something to bait out the Thermo Beam, even if Jinx gets played and Luichi's hand is empty. He will automatically get that Super Mega Death Rocket. Let me tell you something. That doesn't matter. If you get the Super Mega Death Rocket and I kill your Jinx, it doesn't matter to me. I go down to 14 life. I lose a couple of irrelevant units. It's whatever. It's a trade I will take any day of the week. And now Aclon is going to lose a little bit of his board to these Flame Chompers. Say bye-bye to your Black Market Merchant, as well as 1 health on your own Flame Chompers. I'm curious to see if we see the Make It Rain fired off here from Aclon. Does have the opportunity to wait until the next turn, barrel it up with the Petty Officer, and then fire that one off. Is just going to hold that back. Petty Officer going to come down. Are we going to get the barrel? It has actually been so long since I've seen Petty Officer get a barrel. Decimate coming out of Luichi, going to play mana efficiently, knock Aclon down to 13 life, get the life total lead on him for the first time in recent memory, 15 to 13. And Luichi, it's not looking like a quick finals here. What did you top deck? It's called Get Excited, and this is what I meant. There's some real duds in this deck, but Luichi's the one finding them instead of Aclon. You can get excited to not die, and that doesn't feel great. It's actually just a pass out of Luichi. Not even going to be able to get the Jury Rig down pre-combat in that case. And Aclon going to continue to go wide and push for as much damage as possible. Just contemplating, do I want to go for the Petty Officer, or do I want to go for this Yordle Grifter? Gets the Fleet Feather Tracker. Now, this is an interaction that I always thought was a little bit weird. There are a couple of things in Runeterra, like the Augmented Experimenter that we saw a little bit earlier, where the order is set and it's out of your control. Augmented Experimenter discards from left to right, so if you have a Vision on the left side of your hand and a Jury Rig on the right side of your hand, it will come out as a 1/1. But Petty Officer bringing out the Fleet Feather Tracker automatically gives it the Challenger, implying that the units more or less come out simultaneously. And I'm a little confused why that isn't a sort of consistent mechanic throughout the card game. Yordle Grifter gonna come whiffing again. Even after the P and Z card was top deck, gives us pretty damn near lethal though, and actually going to be lethal for sure, as Ezreal will turn into Ezreal's Mystic Shot, and the Warning Shot will deal the damage, even if Luichi somehow found a way to survive all this damage, which, spoiler alert, he will not, and that'll be Aclon tying up the series. We're gonna go to game number 3. This is still nowhere near as long as the finals as I'm used to casting, but it's going to be match point for either player. Only 2 decks available. There were no bans. There aren't any extra decks hidden in the wings. What you see is what you get. And that's going to be Get Excited on to Luichi's own face. Taking himself out again. That's the second time he's actually done that this tournament. Being in the grand finals on match point for either player in a card game invitational is personally one of the most stressful events of my life that I can remember, and I'm sure that Luichi and Aclon are feeling the pressure now as well. Who will fold under the pressure? Who will play perfectly? Who will go home much, much richer at the end of this Mind Masters tournament? $75,000 prize pool. The second largest, I believe, that we have seen for any Legends of Runeterra. If I remember correctly, Twitch Rivals was $100,000. But I do believe this is the, the biggest Eastern prize pool that we have seen. So, invitationals, they come with good money. So if you are looking to get into the Runeterra scene, do what you got to do. Get invited to these tournaments. That's where the real money is. These opens, they're good, but not as good as this. And both players going to start off with their 1-drops. Frostbite midrange versus Jinx Draven discard aggro is not how I thought we would find ourselves on the match point. Aclon finding a much better curve than Economica did before him when he fell in this matchup. Economica had opened up with double Omen Hawk and then didn't draw a unit until turn 4. Aclon at least has the Avarosan Sentry. And I remember that I had said that they were running the same lineup. Economica ran a few more Yetis in the deck. Tall Tales and Ancient Yeti were in here. And I think that did play against him to an extent, as he did cut down the Avarosan Sentry, which we will see out of Aclon now to help try and contest the board. But critically, still nothing that can block a Precious Pet. And Luichi has done a phenomenal... I think every game that we've seen Luichi play is opened up with this Precious Pet. So consistently finding that one. The rest of the hand looks like a stinker, though, and that's why I don't like this deck. There are so many cards that you can top deck to get you out of a situation like this and help you win the game, but at the end of the day, you need Jinx if your deck is going to do anything. You need Augmented Experimenter to refuel and help you get to the Jinx, and if that doesn't happen, you have a lot of bad cards that can gas you out. We've seen so many Jury Rigs hard casted out of Luichi so far this tournament, and it looks like he wants to fire off another one here in order to stop out this Avarosan Sentry. Just do it. Throw it out. See if I care. Play the Jury Rig. It's mana efficient. Might as well, right? Here's the Jury Rig. Gonna protect the life total of Luichi a little bit, blocking the Omen Hawk, not actually wanting to give the draw over to Aclon. Could draw an Avarosan Trapper and suddenly get these Precious Pets off the board. It is something that these Frostbite midrange players have been struggling with, the Precious Pet. Sort of the one Noxus card that has gone unnerfed this entire time. Legion Saboteur not in the deck, but Precious Pet still getting a fair amount of value. Trifarian Cessor off the top for Aclon really isn't anything. Would have preferred a Trifarian Glory Seeker or a... I wanted to say Yeti Yearling, but I know I meant Avarosan Trapper. But Aclon, or Luichi rather, going to get another big attack here. No vision, but does have the Jury Rig, and this is another hard cast Jury Rig, is finding value off these 1/1s where he can, but that is still going to be a 6 life point swing. And with 6 damage already in Luichi's hand, it is very possible that Aclon is going to die to the first Jinx that we see come out. There are no Kindly Tavern Keepers. We can see Mystic Shot and Decimate over the course of the next 2 turns. And there's almost no way that Aclon is actually going to be able to win the game before this Augmented Experimenter comes down. And it just has to find, something. It pretty much has to be Decimate. Jinx also on the table. As long as you can get that Super Mega Death Rocket out, that does represent the last 4 damage that you need. Aclon has some time, but not a lot of time. We're going to see the Avarosian Trapper. That's a pretty good start. Because the Mystic Shot was used on face, this Trifarian Glory Seeker is actually going to be safe to come down. And it looks like Luichi, these precious pets have done so much work for him. They are so precious to our boy Luichi. He has done 8 damage with these cards so far, and that's damn near half your life total in Legends of Runeterra. It doesn't matter how much of a stinker your hand is. If your 1-drops are representing this much power, and I think he still gets to push through 1 damage next turn as well. Probably more. I mean, sometimes it is just a bunch of weenies going wide on the board, and you stumble on your early game. You find the Trapper a little bit too late. You find your Avarosian Sentry cannot block these precious pets. And all of a sudden, Luichi looking pretty well poised in this matchup here. I gotta say, I'm feeling pretty good about his chances. Okay, going to hover the eye, make sure that we are grabbing the precious pet that is actually going to be frostbitten by the Ash. Does grab the proper one. I don't think we see any blocks out of Luichi here. Maybe a Spiderling gets thrown under the bus. Maybe. But not going to be the case. Wants to keep the board as wide as possible. Give himself as much of a chance as possible to push through 1 damage and just need to top deck a Get Excited for Lethal. Here's a Mystic Shot off the top. And I think Aclon is going to have to block both of these 2 attack units and then use a Brittle Steel onto one of the 1 attack units. Or the other way around. You know, I think it's fine to... yeah, do it this way. Block these 1/1s. Throw the Brittle Steel out onto the precious pet. Save a little bit of health on your Avarosian Trapper. Either way, Luichi, so close to winning this game, is almost certainly going to be able to find it. Probably going to throw out the Mystic Shot onto face this turn. Throw out this Augmented Experimenter on the next turn. Sess are going to draw a little bit. Get a Harsh Winds and a Yeti. This is a close one. It really comes down to what Luichi top decks. I've spoken about how I don't like this Jinx Draven before, and I'm going to stick by that. It looks like Luichi is thinking about firing off the Experimenter. There's not a lot of difference between 3 health and 1 health. It is really just the Mystic Shot that makes a difference there. So it's a question of, are you looking for a second copy of Mystic Shot, or are you just going to try to get this a little bit earlier down? Try to find a Jinx to get a Super Mega Death Rocket, or try to find a Get Excited, which will actually be lethal. You're kind of at the point for Luichi where you're never getting through unit damage again. They've done as much work as they can. This precious pet is still alive after 6 turns. He's done his work. He can't do any more. Aclon has the board. Aclon will not be losing the board for the remainder of the game. That just is what it is. Luichi has to try and find the win through burn damage. He has already used the single copy of Decimate that is in his deck. A Mystic Shot is discarded. Is there a Get Excited in the top 3? Luichi, are you going home a winner? Not just yet. We do see Jury Rig and a couple of astute academics. Babbling Bjerg, it only takes a Get Excited to win the game, but it doesn't matter. We're going to see the Ash level out of Aclon, and he is going to take this one away. Luichi, you rolled the dice, you didn't get it, and Aclon is actually going to take it back. The Harsh Winds that he drew the previous turn is going to come in big, lets him get through the Ash lethal, and that does mean that Aclon is going to be your Mind Master 2020 Riot Japan Invitational Champion. Luichi, you fought hard. The Augmented Experimenter still overloaded for you. Unfortunately, your discard aggro is not going to be able to pick it up. There's a 3, there's a 4, there's a 5, and that is going to be Aclon taking this one. The Frostbite mid-range is still the king of the format. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Boulevard. My socials are in the description below. There's a link to my Linktree, as well as Discord, and mainly my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter if you like my casts, as I do this just about every weekend for Duels of Runeterra, Project Conquerors, Jamfest, BR Legends, BR Fest, all that kind of stuff. I'm casting every weekend. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter to figure out when and where I'll be available. Thank you so much for watching, and congratulations to all the competitors, especially Aclon, your Grand Finals champion.